Welcome to a new episode of What to Think, VentureBeat's Tech Topics podcast with me, Dylan Tweeney.
And me, Julie Odell.
This week, we're going to bring you the top news headlines of the week, starting with Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference and some more bad behavior from Silicon Valley startups. And then we're going to bring on Miko Matsumura, who is with Hazelcast, and he's one of the original Java guys, and we'll have a conversation with him.
He's such a nerd.
Super nerd.
Super dorky.
Super nerd
Love
edition
it.
of What to Think. First of all, we're going to tell you what to think about WWDC, Apple's annual developer conference.
If you're an Android or Windows phone person, you can think, wah, wah.
Well, so some of it does sort of look like ketchup, right? They're catching up to Android.
Oh, I thought you said it looked like
ketchup,
blood
red and goopy.
Gooey.
No. Like catching up to Android and even Windows. I mean, they're the new version of OS X called Yosemite actually has this sort of translucent look to it that reminds a lot of people of Windows Vista.
Well, I think Apple has been playing ketchup, not the condiment, for quite some time. To me, that's a big duh.
There's a whole lot more to it than just translucency, though, and there are some features that so far are not matched by Android and Windows. For example, in the new iOS 8 and OS X, there are all kinds of ways that they're integrated together so that you can start an email on your iPhone and then flip up to complete it on your Mac, or you can answer calls that are coming into your iPhone on your Mac. And that's kind of cool. That's sort of an ecosystem play, right? So that'll only work if all your stuff is Apple's.
Well, I think Google has the same thing. I have Gmail on my Windows phone, and if I start writing an email in Gmail, it's saved as a draft in my desktop Gmail.
Yeah, but you can't do the little flip to the top of the screen, can you?
You know what? I'm so incompetent, I wouldn't know how to do it without the flip. I'm like an infomercial person. I make disasters out of pancakes or scrubbing pans and email. I can't do it.
So you'll probably
I was being
also
sarcastic. I don't think any normal consumer should have a problem with email.
Because you also have trouble with, washing dishes and things like that. You'll probably also love Swift, Apple's new programming language, which I think is made for people like you.
Oh, you mean that sarcastically, sir?
No, the truth is it's made for people like me.
Dumb script kiddies.
So Apple is phasing out Objective-C and replacing it with Swift. And I kind of like this because I've done a little playing around with PHP in my time. I've built websites, content management systems based on PHP. It's a scripting language. It's not sophisticated. Swift is a lot like that. If you're the kind of person who has trouble remembering whether to put a semicolon on the end of each line of your code, if you're that kind of person, and I am for sure, you're going to like Swift.
If you're an Objective-C developer and an iOS pro who's been honing his skills or her skills for a decade, you will not like this because it is stupid. It is dumbing down your craft so that you can be underbid by every Yahoo who goes through code boot camp for 6 weeks.
Interestingly, VentureBeat did an interview with a guy just like that, an iOS developer.
Yeah, Sam Sophis. He's great.
He likes Swift.
He was just saying that. Let's move forward.
He did not get your talking points before interviewing with us.
Well, he should be listening to What to Think, then he would know what to think.
We'll talk more about Swift when we get Miko on the line in a minute. But let's move on from WWDC to the other juicy gossip of the week.
It would be better as juicy gossip if he had gotten plastic surgery or broken up with a high-profile Kim Kardashian-style girlfriend. But Evan Spiegel from Snapchat, he's the CEO.
Founder.
Whatever.
Also, yep.
Yeah. Snapchat was his bright idea. He was caught sending some emails a few years ago.
Well, not caught. He did it many years ago before Snapchat.
And the emails came to light where he's talking about women like they're just blowjob dispensers. Like literally this was part of the email thread, and he's just so misogynist and it's terrifying. He did this when he was a freshman in college, and he's now 22, 23 years old. So this isn't forever ago. And I don't think people change their entire worldview over the course of several years.
But to his credit, he issued a statement.
He issued a statement? That makes me feel better.
He basically said, I'm really, really sorry about this. I was a complete idiot.
He's sorry he got caught. Girl, he is not sorry that he thinks of women as blowjob dispensers.
Well, let's just not be too shocked that somebody in charge of a Silicon Valley venture-backed company is kind of a bro.
Well, all the bros who are his VC buddies totally stuck up for him and said things like, he was young, he made a mistake. I'm like, dude, he's still young, and I'll guarantee you, if I were a woman at that company, there is no way I could look him in the face after that. I would quit.
You might have second thoughts at least.
I would think that his entire worldview constitutes sexual harassment. I really would.
Do you
I
think there's
he
hope
should
for
be fired.
change? Do you think he could change?
Yeah, if he really put his mind to it and surrounded himself with strong, positive female role models.
I think there's hope.
I think he needs a woman role model, like a woman mentor.
There you go. He needs a lady boss.
Sentenced.
He needs a lady boss.
Evan, call me.
Next, we're going to bring on our guest, Miko Matsumura. But first, I want to give a quick thanks to our host and sponsor, New Relic. They're a software analytics company that makes sense of billions of metrics across millions of web and mobile apps. New Relic helps the people who build modern software understand the stories their data is trying to tell them. And when software breaks, well, everyone loses. So that's why New Relic helps out. They can help improve the software performance and reliability of your apps and your sites, delivering a better experience for the end users and more success for your business. It supports PHP, Python, Ruby, Java, .NET, Node, iOS and Android apps, and I'm sure there's going to be a Swift compatibility for it at some point.
Well, if it supports iOS apps, then yeah, Swift is
coming.
Given.
There you go. And now let's bring on Miko.
Hi, Miko.
Hi.
How you doing, man?
Yeah, doing just fine.
So Miko, for the listeners, is at Hazelcast now, but I got to know him about 15 years ago now when you were the head evangelist for Java at Sun Microsystems. So you've been hanging around the Java world for a long, long time.
Yeah, I really dipped my head in Java pretty deep, and I really like the whole nerd vibe there. I actually got into it. I was a dropout Yale neuroscience PhD candidate, and I was doing all this kind of C++ programming on neural networks.
As you do.
What a loser. Okay.
Yeah, and then I just kind of I guess it's, in order to be like either a professional or a programmer, you kind of need to drop out from like an Ivy. So,
oh, okay.
Are you a bro, Miko? You are not a bro.
That was my bro cred. Yeah.
As long as you're not wearing cargo shorts, we're cool.
No, I'm an aspiring super nerd, so that's my fantasy land.
So we were talking about Swift a little bit earlier on with Apple's new language, and anytime somebody introduces a new language, this is really controversial among developers. Some people hate it, some people love it. I'm actually kind of excited about Swift because it looks like the kind of thing that might allow dummies like me to create iOS apps. But I think that's exactly the reason Jolie hates it. So
I have my opinions, but I will reserve spewing them until Miko is done talking.
As somebody who's been involved with major new language rollout, what do you think Apple's doing here? Are they on the right track?
It's funny. Like, I detected as you guys were talking this kind of theme of eating things, and I like eating things.
Eating things.
Yeah, eating things. I'll give you an example. So you guys launched in first with this concept of ketchup.
Yes, that's right.
It's something I like. I like to eat. My son really likes ketchup. But is Swift just playing ketchup? Right? Are they just doing that? Is that all? I like eating ketchup. But if you look at what they're talking about, they're really just talking about like another, yet another kind of statically typed language. There are things like generics, which is obviously pretty nice, and things like closures, and it's like, wow, closures, and Java got closures, and they got Lambda expressions, and Scala and all this whatnot has the same.
Okay, you've just totally lost me there, Miko.
I'm still with him, Mr. PHP.
Okay, so
I studied Java.
See, I think this is exactly the reason why people like me, who don't have any computer science background and don't understand Java.
You go, Miko. It's your turn. Speak, brother.
I'm just thinking about like modernity and like buzzword bingo. And there's this wonderful slide that they threw up onto the screen, which is like the ultimate buzzword compliance slide. Like they just have the word Swift and then they have all the buzzwords splashed around it. Like, hey, we have modernity now, aren't we cool? Which is, nice, right? And that's very nice. But, the thing that's really interesting to me about all of this is, what I think about a lot. So, in terms of the theme of eating stuff, and I'm not swinging all the way over to the Evan discussion around.
That's where my mind was going. But
yeah, I was going to say
you do your thing.
Yeah. So to where I was going is Mark Andreessen, which is the software eating the world.
Yeah, that's right.
And to me, like, how does Swift eat the world? And when I think about Swift eating the world, it's only going to eat the apple-colored slice of the world. So that's one of the fundamental limitations of it. I had this great sushi lunch with Guy Kawasaki, the evangelist of the Apple platform.
Yeah.
One thing he said to me is, he said, Java's never going to win because you can't beat Microsoft, right?
Wow.
What?
It was such a funny thing to say, because it was like, but Java runs on Microsoft, right?
And it's assuming the whole thing is a zero-sum game, which obviously it's not and is never going to be.
Exactly. So anyhow, and it was funny, and it was a weird time, and Microsoft sued Sun for Java. Lots of things happened. Water went under.
Mm-hmm. Remember that.
To me, my objection is kind of around Swift doesn't plan to be eating the whole world. Swift only seems to plan to eat all of Apple.
All of the Apple world, yeah.
Which is great. And when I look at what Swift is bringing to the Apple world, the thing that I seize onto is not all of the modernity. So it's like, oh, look, modernity, scriptiness. To me, the thing that is eating is the playgrounds. Have you guys seen that thing?
No.
I have heard it referred to. Why don't you clarify for me?
Dope. I mean, like, one of the ways that we got kind of into Ruby, remember that thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everyone was using that for a while.
Got so stoked on Ruby because you could go on the web and they had this interpreter. And you could basically start typing commands into Ruby on a web page, and it would start acting like Ruby. And you would just be like, and they had this entire tutorial, which would just be like, oh, well, now type this thing. And it would just start talking to you. And you would just start talking back, and it would start doing stuff. Right. And so the ability for a developer to eat Swift, it's being chopped into these little bite-sized chunks and fed to you, so developers can eat Swift, and then Swift can eat the rest of the Apple world, right? So Playgrounds is really, really cool. It's basically sort of runtime interpreted language. It's actually sort of a statically typed compiled language in reality. But in the experience of a playground, it looks like an interpreted language, like BASIC or something. That's sort of fun and playful, right? And that's why I guess it's called Playgrounds. But I think that's huge. That's a BFD right there.
So that really lowers the barrier to entry, because you don't have to compile or deploy or do any of that nonsense.
You don't have to sit there and go through all this kind of crazy programmer stuff. You know?
This is where Jolie speaks up.
Yeah, go for it.
May I have the floor, Mr. Dillon?
Speak, sister.
All right. Now, this is my truth. No tea, no shade, but if you do not have the basic skills to put a freaking semicolon at the end of a statement, maybe you shouldn't be writing applications for people's iPhones. Maybe you need to go back to school, study some computer science, and come back to the technology world when you have something to offer besides garbage software. I think that the quick flip code boot camps and languages for dummies are really making the barrier of entry too low, First
of all, I am astonished by your ability to, with your voice, put air quotes around computer science.
Thank you.
I'm still unclear.
Well, I'm enamored of computer science. I love how you learn the logic and you learn what makes the machine move, and you're able to grasp the beauty and complexity and simplicity of the language that you're learning because you understand the computer science. If all you know is Swift, I don't think you are an engineer. I still think you're just a script kiddie who's not really valuable in any broader context. And you're driving salaries down for really good iOS engineers.
Oh, that's the last thing iOS engineers have to worry about.
No, it is not. No, because when you have, hundreds
if you're a good programmer, you can make not
if you are underbid
money
by a kid who just learned Swift.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Here's my thing: is why should you have to know your way around
the tech economy, sir?
This is huge, actually. What Jolie is saying is super duper important, and it's super important.
Thank you, Miko.
And by the way, I was gonna shout, speak cis grammar. It's kind of it's sort of the opposite of a programmer.
Yeah.
I get it.
And I know you do like Python-y things and things like that. But just to kind of pull back to eating stuff.
Yes.
Right?
Like I will eat you if you learn Swift. I will dine on your bones.
Okay, that I love.
Wow,
Yeah.
I'm terrified now.
It's dark in here. It's got dark.
Wow, that's good. Yeah,
I'm gonna shut up for a
let's
second.
talk about something though, because in the world that's coming, that software is devouring, right? Everything is going to be somehow involved in software in some way. There's all kinds of distributed computing going on. You've got, Amazon Web Server instances running code. You've got people running stuff on their smartphones and their tablets. Why should I have to know how to configure a server from the command line, or spin up an instance on AWS, or run a compiler, or install a coding environment on my computer just to be able to do...
You don't even want to install a coding...
I'm just saying,
what?
why should these be prerequisites to being able to participate in that world?
Because it's honorable.
It's like, well, why don't we all go back to writing assembly language code, right?
Yeah, why don't we?
This is the question of why should mass be conducted in Latin, right?
Exactly.
It's ritual. Like, it's why is Emacs such a rite of passage for developers?
Oh my
right?
God, yes.
It's this tradition, and it's a beautiful kind of elegant thing. But I think this debate is super interesting because it's about the automation of everything. And I'll tell you, the world. So my son is 8.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to be doing, at the end of the month, he's going to be doing Stanford Digital Media Academy. And, he's going to be this kind of Swift programmer type that is going to eat the jobs of traumatized middle-aged executives, sort of 26-year-old middle-aged, software developers.
Yeah, back of the bus for you, Miko.
I figure we've got, 10 years before Miko's son starts to take over the world, right?
And people are going to be like, dude, there's no semicolon at the end of your line. And he's just going to be like, dude, my software just ate your software. and that'll be the end of that. And hopefully, people's daughters will be doing the same thing. So, that to me is the part of this thing that's kind of potentially interesting. And it's sort of like the whole formalism of going through computer science it's very intriguing. It's intriguing because, to me, is this a gateway drug, right? Because I got into programming through a fully interpreted, a basic interpreter running on an Atari 400, so that was my gateway drug. So if it maybe Swift is a gateway drug, and that it's a gateway drug to hard Swift, and that you can just keep...
I'm all in favor of that.
I think you could be right, Miko. That would be great.
In reality,
less dystopian.
I don't think we have to worry about more people learning how to code and churning out crappy code.
We absolutely do.
Because it's going to increase the value of the people who actually understand computer science and know how to, architect a whole system.
No, because the people will look like they can do all that through automation and backend and platform, whatever, as a service. And they will simply cost less. And so then dopes like whoever, a startup entrepreneur B, will hire them instead of the expensive ace, because they're doing this lean startup crap.
And who do you think is going to win out in the end? Which company do you think is going to eat all the others?
Everyone will end up in tears. The tech economy will collapse. We'll be all of us out of jobs. The electromagnetic pulse will come. I will be living off the land in camel skin clothing.
Wow.
I don't know about you suckers.
Real dark.
But what will you eat?
I will eat wild game.
I'm going to find a kind of a abandoned ketchup factory and eat ketchup.
So, Miko, tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Java these days, or what you're doing with, not necessarily Java, but sort of distributed computing and the kind of stuff that Hazelcast does.
So here's a funny thing that happened in 2005, pursuant to software eating the world, which is that in 2005, the single von Neumann processor Moore's Law basically hit the wall. And so, it just became multi-core, right? Like, if you remember the old days, I remember when I got a gigahertz processor. It was just couldn't freaking shut up about the thing. It was stupid. My wife was laughing at me because I was just like, oh my God, it's like a gigahertz and all this stupid thing like that. So where's my 100 gigahertz processor? You know what I mean? Moore's Law should have given me this thing years ago, and it's just not happening. It never will happen.
Right.
Because we've just smashed into the world of massively parallel multi-core, right?
Yeah.
So it's that world.
So you can't make processors run faster just by increasing the clock speed anymore. So
correct. And that's a transistor density problem. And what you're really hitting now is you're hitting massively multi-core.
Yep.
And so what happens is that the software that's busily going to eat the world will be distributed concurrent software, right? And so the thing that I'm working on here at Hazelcast is, what does that look like? So Hazelcast basically makes radically, massively distributed data look like it's running on a single Java virtual machine. And so you basically deal with it as an abstraction so that you're dealing with it, but it's a machine that has an elastically arbitrary number of processors and an elastically arbitrary amount of pooled shared memory that's clustered across an arbitrary number of nodes. And so that's the basic gist of it, and to me, the thing where things get exciting is, what we were just talking about, software eating the world and software developers eating, each other in this kind of like, cannibalistic frenzy, so the thing that I think we haven't really talked that much about is kind of AIs. Right, which is, when do the creepy bots and the evolutionary algorithms start to come in and eat the programmers, right? So, it's at that level, metaprogramming becomes the game, and, AI start cranking out software.
I'm surprised that Jolie didn't jump in while you were describing that.
I think that is one of the most important and troubling questions of our time.
I'm surprised Jolie didn't jump in and say and attack Hazelcast for making it too easy for people to make multi-core distributed software, that you should have to understand how to do
Sir, you cannot know the mind of the Jolie Odell. Your ways are not my ways.
But AIs.
Oh, that's blasphemy. AIs, shame on me.
That's scary. AIs coding for you, right?
I
interviewed Stephen Wolfram a couple months ago, and he had a very, very creepy vision of the future, which is that, AIs will sort of evolve into AIs and will just be a bunch of like computing nodes in a giant computing box somewhere.
He and I are going to hunt big game together. That's how it's going to be. No, but really, AIs I think they're part of our progress. I don't think we can get to, the science fiction type reality where we're traveling through space and encountering other life forms without more processing power than we have in our puny human brains. That said, we need to have really good controls, and we need to have people like me who say, hey, is this all really good? Is this all really necessary? Is this evolution, or is it, dystopian corporate marketing bullcrap? What are we using this intelligence and this software for? And do we have controls on it?
Very good questions.
I know. I'm like a genius.
Yeah, but it's super hard, right? Because these things are already out there. Like I'm kind of trying to shift myself from being a serial entrepreneur to becoming kind of more of a massively parallel entrepreneur, and I'm advising a bunch of companies, including a bunch of like machine learning, and one of the companies that I'm working with is evolving stock day traders. And these things basically are evolutionarily created. And,
like automated virtual stock traders.
Correct. And these critters actually conduct sexual reproduction of their rule sets, and they're doing all kinds of things.
Wow.
To optimize the control over the search space, right? So it's
just when you thought that Wall Street couldn't get any more perverse.
Well, this is the beginning of the end of Wall Street. If you will watch Star Trek, the episode "The Neutral Zone," you will find that the stock market disappears. Please, everyone, watch that episode. It's on YouTube.
Required reading. But to make a long story short, to what extent does knowledge work become subsumed by, meta programming, and in which case, if it becomes meta programming, then the meta programmers will have jobs, but they're obviously a much smaller slice of the market than programmers, right? And if you look at, today, my company serves a bunch of high frequency trading outfits because of the distributed computing aspect, and 80% of trading is fully automated now. And so that's a whole segment of thing that's kind of being erased.
80%. Wow.
Yeah. And when you talk about software eating software, it's eating people, it's eating jobs, and we're basically creating a fully automated everything sphere. And that's everything that can't be. And we're seeing really offshore, and we're seeing automation, we're seeing cybernetics in the kind of very loose sense of the word, not just bionic cybernetics, but
yeah, I think we're approaching that Kurzweilian singularity.
Oh, but I think that's a load of horse shit.
I do too, but it's like if you could use your imagination, that would be the trajectory. So anyways, I think we're just about out of time for today.
If anyone is still listening to this conversation, they followed us right up to the edge of the singularity.
God bless you people.
Thank you very much. It's been an amazing discussion for me.
And Dylan's personal phone number is, this is your Easter egg. You want to call Dylan and shoot the poo? We're
Miko,
not doing that this time.
Thank you so much for joining us this week, Miko. It's been a great pleasure talking with you.
I love shooting the poo.
You are my favorite kind of nerd to have conversations with, Miko. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, my cis grammar.
This has been another riveting episode of What to Think with VentureBeat's Dylan Tweeney and me, Jolie Odell. You can find us online at VentureBeat.com. We would also like to thank our generous sponsor, New Relic, for loaning us their awesome podcasting studio and supporting our harebrained efforts. We will talk to you all again next week. Stay tuned.
See you next week.